beginning, I didn't know what was happening to my family or why. After hearing the first major news blitz about Agent Orange in 1978, and when Maud DeVictor broke the news about veterans having health problems, and realizing that that was a great possibility for all of the things that are happening in my family, my husband's illnesses, birth defects in my children, I started collecting research. What I found was that these chemicals caused in animals and also in people lymphoma, cancers, birth defects that I had seen in my own children and seen in other veterans' children traveling around the country and speaking with these people.
Where have all the flowers gone? Long time ago.
Marie was born with hydrocephaly, which is an excessive amount of cerebral spinal fluid on the brain. She has a neural tube defect, which is common in animals and also humans exposed to phenoxy compounds. She had to have a plastic tube or a shunt inserted in her head when she was 2 weeks old. She has a severe seizure disorder, which is complicated again by the continued re-exposure to the chemicals that sends her into epileptic seizures with paralysis. Zachary's problems range from eye disorders. His optic nerve is underdeveloped. He has what's known as ossification of the skull, where his soft spot is very, very large, and he's 5 years old now and still is not covered. Again, something that's been noted in the test animals.
Save the life of my
The veteran and his family, unfortunately, are lost in a lot of statistics. I guess I am their conscience. I am there to remind them that we are not statistics, that we are people, that veterans around the country every day suffer from these illnesses, from dioxin contamination. And it is my duty to my family, to my veteran husband, to all of the people that I know and represent, the wives and the children who have been forgotten. And I will continue to try and right those wrongs and guarantee our health care and our future for my husband and my children and my friends for as long as it takes. This is a battle that we cannot lose. We have to continue to do the work. Put yourself in our place. If you knew someone was poisoning your family, what would you do? You would fight back with everything that you have to try and stop them. And in our case, we happen to be fighting 6 multinational corporations in the United States government, which is quite a bit to chew off, to bite off and, try and deal with. And we must continue.
How many deaths will it take till he knows that too many people die? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind.
If we want health care, we want them basically to recognize that a problem exists. At this time, they're still saying that we have to prove that. And I think it's been proven many, many times over, and that's what's so frustrating about the whole issue. And that's the hardest thing to swallow for most of us, is that our children were poisoned by our own government. And it's been almost 15 years for most of these guys in the government's uses to admit that there is a problem and our children are still sick. And it makes them wonder what they were fighting for.
And it's 1, 2, 3, what are we fighting for? Don't ask me, I don't give a damn. The next stop is Vietnam. And it's 5, 6, 7, open up the pearly gates. Well, there ain't no time to wonder why. We're all gonna die.
On a national level, we have lobbied and demonstrated in Washington, D.C. on several occasions to our issue to Congress to again try and bring home to them the magnitude of the problems of Vietnam veterans as well as people domestically exposed to these chemicals. I participated in a demonstration and memorial service around the National Cemetery in 1982. We were locked out of the cemetery because we carry with orange flowers, and we wish to lay the wreath to remember those veterans who had died and are still suffering from Agent Orange. Since we have been working on the issue, there have been people who have called us radicals and militants, trying to overthrow the government. A lot of things have happened to us personally that were very cruel and very unkind things for people to do. There are days when I cry a lot, and days when I go to the VA hospital and see a guy who's really sick and don't think I can go on another day. And that's a bad day, but there are the good ones too. You know, when my kids come and give me a big hug and I get a real nice call from someone who says, "Thanks a lot for what you're doing. We appreciate it." That means a lot. Unfortunately, we don't get many of those. On a personal level, the most rewarding part about it is traveling around the country and meeting a lot of people who are like myself, and watching us and knowing that we can overcome obstacles that seem impossible. And as hopeless as this whole issue seems, I see that in people who are very ill, whose families are very ill. They still have hope, and they still have courage to try and change what's happening to us.
I died in Vietnam and didn't even know it.
Vietnam, the war that refuses to fade into memory, the war with so many unanswered questions festering like an open wound. What has become of the men who fought in one of the most unpopular wars in recent history, who returned home unwelcomed to a society which continues to ignore them? No jobs, poor military benefits, and now possibly another horror, a silent killer, the effects of poisoning from the defoliant known as Agent Orange. From 1962 to 1970, the U.S. military used this chemical herbicide to destroy trees used as enemy camouflage. It was dumped over a total of 5 million acres, land the equivalent size of the state of Massachusetts. Some called it chemical warfare. However, the spraying was discontinued in 1970 when the Army claimed the program had proven ineffective. But perhaps the real reason for the operation's abrupt halt was evidence that linked a toxic chemical byproduct in Agent Orange known as dioxin to birth defects and cancer in lab animals. Paul